How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford for the first time in the final semester. My name is Blake Holmes. As always, I'd like to welcome back my co-host Isaiah Addair. After being away for a month, I've been doing a little bit of the podcast style of broadcast for the first time in the past month. Isaiah will be coming back and joining me today here on campus. And today we begin our last run on the show in Radio Free Radford. I'm excited to take y'all with us for this last run. Isaiah, you ready to get this semester started?
Bro, I'm so excited. It's been 2 years now, plus our time in high school writing together for newspapers. It's going to be fun. It's 7 total years now.
And yep, we're excited to take you on this last ride. So with that being said, stick around with us. Today, we're going to be talking about the recent action around the Super Bowl, NBA, and NCAA basketball season. We're going to start like we always do. We're going to quickly get through because we do want to make this our official Super Bowl 53 preview. But again, we just want to go ahead and get the rest of the sports out of the way quickly. So first, we're going to start like we always do with college basketball. And starting it off with Radford. Radford has been a red-hot basketball team as of late. 15-6 overall record right now. I believe they're on their 7th or 8th straight win. Impressive start to Big South play. This past week, they got wins over Longwood and Charleston Southern. They will face Campbell tomorrow here at the Dedman Center, and on Saturday, they will face Winthrop in Winthrop. So Campbell, Chris Clemens coming to town. That's going to be a tough game. We all know about the stellar athlete and fantastic player that Chris Clemens is for the Fighting Camels. But when you think about Radford and their resiliency so far this year, Carleek Jones is putting together a pretty decent season after sitting out the first part of the season. And they're undefeated in Big South play right now, leading the Big South, kind of what we expected. And I also want to say in the latest bracketology put out by Joe Lunardi, the Radford Highlanders were actually picked as a 13 seed in the West in the NCAA tournament instead of a 16 seed like they were last year. Of course, unfortunately, they would have to play Villanova once again. But in this case, a 13 seed. I've seen them play Marquette in some projections as well. So I say, what are your thoughts on the start of the season so far, and what do you think the Highlanders need to do to improve and continue their dominance throughout the Big South?
Well, for one, I think the start to the season, especially wins over Notre Dame and Texas to start the season, and without Carleek Jones, the one that almost single-handedly won them the tournament last year with the buzzer beater against Liberty. Man, I don't even know. I think that's in large part why they're projected to be ranked so high in the seeding is because the wins against teams are typically not a pushover, Power 5 teams. To continue playing well in conference, I think they just got to stick to the style of play that they've come up with of late. I mean, they've been, just letting Ed Polite do what he does, to attack near the rim, get the boards. And from what I've seen, they're playing a weird kind of version. Like, at times it looks like they're playing small ball because they got 3 guards on the court. But then again, you have 2 guys that could play center on the court with that. So it's positionless basketball like we see with a lot of teams in the NBA and a lot of other college teams. I think playing that and having such an identity that teams can't key in on one specific player, I think it's what's going to continue pushing Radford above the rest in the Big South at least.
And I do have to agree with you. I like to think that Carleek Jones is a stabilizing factor in both the offense and defensive efforts of the Highlanders. And when it comes to Big South play, this is going to be an inconsistent team. There's not many teams that go through the Big South that are going to be a consistently great performer. But the thing about Radford, as you hinted on, they've played tougher competition, and they've actually beaten tougher competition. In their 4 Power 5 games this year, they actually split. They went 2-2. Wins, as you said, over Texas and Notre Dame, and losses to Clemson and Maryland. Maryland wasn't close, but Clemson, on the other hand, Radford actually had a lead in the second half. Clemson just ended up pulling away on their home floor. So they know what it takes to play against a tough team. Now, once again, it's going to take a lot. When it comes to when you play in the Big South, you're not guaranteed a spot at all, and you almost have to win the conference tournament to even have a shot at the NCAA tournament, which of course that's an automatic bid. So Radford, they're getting hot right now, and that's great, but they have to continue to do what obviously gets them wins at the end of the season. They can't burn out early in the season. Moving on to a national scale into the AP poll, which actually came out once again yesterday, with it being Tuesday today. The number 1 team, actually 1 through 5, stays the same. Tennessee leads the nation still at 18-1 after a perfect week. 2 scary games against Vanderbilt, and I believe the other one, I cannot recall exactly who it was off the top of my head, but Tennessee, a tough scare it was West Virginia. Actually, they cruised against West Virginia. Was down 12 early, but they were able to get back into it and cruise against the Mountaineers in a scary game against Vanderbilt. Tennessee goes perfect in the week, stays on top of the country. Duke right behind them at 17-2. Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, Trey Jones. The list goes on with the fantastic freshmen that the Blue Devils have. Number 3 is the Virginia Cavaliers, 18-1, going another perfect week after their only loss of the season to Duke a couple weeks ago. Number 4 is Gonzaga at 19-2. Former number 1 team back into the top 5 once again, the number 4 seed. Number 5 is Michigan at 19-1. Michigan, their only loss this season coming to Wisconsin on the road, unranked Wisconsin in Big Ten play. But Michigan State at the number 6 spot actually just lost a couple of days ago in Big Ten play as well. So Michigan and Michigan State back neck and neck in the Big Ten, and that's anybody's race. So Isaiah, take this top 5, Tennessee, Duke, Virginia, Gonzaga, and Michigan. Are there any snubs? Do you think there's maybe someone that's ranked too high? What do you think? What are your thoughts in the top 5 with these ratings?
Personally, I think it's worth pointing out first. Duke's freshman this year it probably is the best freshman class I've ever seen by one college, or you could at least make the argument. You have 3 guys that are projected to go possibly in the top 5 of the NBA draft after being one and dones with Reddish and Barrett and Zion Williamson. With that being said, I think UVA should be ahead of Duke. I think UVA should be number 2. And yes, they lost to Duke. They got the head, like Duke does have the head-to-head. But record-wise, and Duke is a really good school, and it's UVA's only loss. Duke lost, I think, one of their 2 losses was actually against what was the team?
It was an unranked Syracuse team at home.
Yeah, I mean, so with that, like, Syracuse was good last year, and they're not that bad this year, I don't think. But at the same time, UVA's only loss was against a good Duke team. And Duke's ranked ahead of them. Okay, you can make the argument that it's good, but at the same time, Duke lost to an unranked team, and they're still number 2 over a one-loss team. And Michigan's one loss as well. So
I do agree with you to an extent. I do think that when you take a look at the sheer talent that Duke has, it's hard to not include them. It's almost hard to not even put them still at number 1 in the country with the talent they have. But the 2 losses, one being, as I said, to an unranked team at home, it's kind of hard to put them at the number 1 spot. And I could almost also say put them down to the 3 and either let UVA or Michigan slide into that spot. But UVA, I do have a problem with putting UVA at number 2 over Duke because Duke not only beat UVA at home, they beat UVA without Trey Jones, their point guard. So there still was a setback in that game, and Duke was able to overcome that and beat the Cavaliers. I almost want to say I'd rather put Michigan at the number 2 spot, though, because Michigan, the only game, yes, they did lose to Wisconsin, who was unranked, who is not the greatest basketball team this year, but it was on the road. So Wisconsin's never an easy place, and you can look throughout the past, Michigan and Wisconsin, when it comes to going to Wisconsin, seems like Michigan always has trouble there. Whether it's they are a fantastic team, national championship caliber team like they are this year, or they're a little bit under the radar and not that great. Once again, they always seem to have a little bit of trouble at Wisconsin and Madison. So to be fair, I almost want to say Michigan should belong higher up, especially higher than number 5 in the country. That's my main problem with that is, do I really think that this Michigan team is worse than Gonzaga right now? No. I don't think Gonzaga is a bad basketball team. I think Gonzaga is a very good basketball team. But I don't think they are better than Michigan right now because I know Gonzaga, they've lost a couple of good games. One of them to the number 1 team in the country right now. But with Michigan, only 1 loss. It was on the road. I think that's not really fair to the Wolverines to have them all the way down at number 5. But other than that, I think these ratings are pretty solid, although I don't like Michigan State with 3 losses being at 6th over Nevada, who only has 1 loss at number 8, and Kentucky also sneaking into the top 7 as well. That's it for NCAA basketball. We'll go to NBA basketball. Again, this is a little bit out of order, but we want to dedicate as much time to the Super Bowl as much as we can. So with the NBA, we'll talk about the standings review. So the NBA standings were, again, over halfway through the year at this point. In the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks lead it at 35-13. Again, it's based on win percentage, not total wins. So the Milwaukee Bucks, 35-13, are on top of the conference. Toronto is behind them at 37-15. Number 3 is the Indiana Pacers at 32-17. Victor Oladipo out for the season, though. So Indy will look to see if they can keep that up, if they're a little bit inspired, or if they start to slip down the rankings. Number 4 is Philadelphia at 32-18. Number 5 is the Boston Celtics at 31-19, and there's been kind of growing doubt that Kyrie Irving may not re-sign with Boston. Number 6 is the Brooklyn Nets at 27-24. And remember, Brooklyn's playing without Karis LeVert right now. He'll be coming back towards the end of the year. Number 7 is Miami at 24-24, trying to make the playoffs in Dwayne Wade's last dance. Number 8 is the Charlotte Hornets at 24-25. Detroit, once again, after starting off pretty good, have fallen into a little bit of a slump. They are out of the playoffs right now, but Kemba Walker has Charlotte into the playoff race. In the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors, as we know, just fantastic, 36-14. They've won 11 straight here. They were at one point the third best team in the West. Now they're looking like they may take a commanding lead as we expected at the beginning of the year. Number 2 is the Denver Nuggets right behind them at 34-15. Number 3 is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 31-18. Number 4 is the Portland Trail Blazers at 31-20. Number 5 is the Houston Rockets 29-20 with a probable MVP player in James Harden. Number 6 is San Antonio at 29-22. Number 7 is the Utah Jazz picking it up towards their early season slump, 29-22. Number 8 is the LA Clippers at 28-23. Yes, the Los Angeles Lakers without LeBron James are out of the playoffs right now. A lot of season left to be played, though. A lot of season of LeBron left, of LA Bron left. So we take a look here, and I always like to do this every single week. In the Eastern Conference, we take a look. 3 teams that are out of the playoffs in the West could be in the playoffs if they were in the Eastern Conference. And it always begs the question, should we eliminate conference seeding? Different people have different stances on that. But as of right now, the Lakers, the Kings, and the Timberwolves could be potentially in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So that's the standings. Any upstart teams you're surprised with? Any dark horse teams you want to pick? Do you think that there is a team that can realistically challenge Golden State this year, or do you expect to see more domination when it comes to postseason time?
One team, I know what we're going to talk about later, of course. So there's one team I want to save when it comes to that conversation. But one team that I think can compete against Golden State, I think the obvious choice would be Denver. Right behind them in the Western Conference. Seems to be their kryptonite year in, year out when they play, especially in Denver. But, a choice that's not so obvious, I think that Toronto may be. I know they have trouble in playoffs, but if they meet in the conference finals, or in the NBA finals, I think it could be interesting because Kawhi Leonard's on a different level defensively. This year, offensively, he's stepping it up a notch. What's the one player? Pascal Siakam. Siakam, that's right. He has been playing lights out the past few weeks. He had a pretty solid campaign over the whole year, and they're doing this without Kyle Lowry. Now, I think they could really they're going to play better than the Cavaliers did against Golden State last year. I don't expect it if they match up and Kawhi and Siakam continue to play like they are now. It's not going to be in 4 games. I expect them. They could possibly take it to 6, especially Kawhi playing offensively like he has. But I think that might be the best chance right now, honestly.
Keep in mind, we haven't seen until now what the Golden State Warriors could be because DeMarcus Cousins has been out all year. We see him coming back. They've won 11 straight. Is that maybe a correlation? Probably. Now, I agree with you with Toronto. But I'm going to actually flip it on its head. Another Eastern Conference team that I say look out for, because if they can get a favorable seed, and we know the potential they can play, is the Boston Celtics. Because Kyrie Irving matches up with Stephen Curry. We know that they've had epic battles in the finals before. We know that Al Horford as a big man, Jason Tatum, the young guy, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris. The list goes on of very solid NBA players. Do I think they would beat the Warriors in a 7-game series? No, I don't think anybody in the league is going to beat the Warriors in a 7-game series, especially not this year. But whenever you're talking about a 7-game series and you're talking about getting to the finals and competing with Golden State, Toronto might do it, but I think the team that stacks up the best with them overall is the Boston Celtics. You take a look at the Western Conference, once again, the Denver Nuggets, could they maybe get a game? Maybe. This is the same team that beat the Nuggets by 30 on their home floor the other night, though. So, again, upstart team, great team, early season success for Denver. Don't think they're going to beat Golden State. Same thing for Oklahoma City. you can go down the list. I don't think anybody's going to stack up with the Golden State Warriors. But Boston, I think that's the primetime team. If you're looking for a fantastic finals matchup, that's the team to look for. Would love to see Giannis as well with Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, all of them try to go up against Golden State. But I think we're going to see yet another year of domination coming out from the Golden State Warriors. The next thing we're going to talk about is the All-Star voting. All-Star starters have been announced. We'll see when the reserves are going to be. They will be announced this Thursday, so we'll cover that next week as well. But for the starters in the Western Conference, we will see Team LeBron, and LeBron will be picking his team, of course. And the All-Star starters are James Harden, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and Stephen Curry. All well-deserved, all fantastic campaigns. A lot of fans are saying that Kevin Durant should not be there ahead of maybe Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic even, but Kevin Durant gets the nod as the All-Star starter. And Paul George, if James Harden didn't exist, he might be one of the front runners for MVP, but James Harden is on another level this year. In the Eastern Conference, we will see Team Giannis. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the captain, I believe. Yes, he is the captain of the Eastern Conference, or his All-Star team, and he will have, coming out of the Eastern Conference, he will have, that is Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, Joel Embiid, and where is that? And Bradley Beal from Washington. So another good set of players coming out of the Eastern Conference. And we take a look. Actually, no, it looks like Bradley Beal is a reserve. I apologize. I've said that incorrectly. In the Eastern Conference, it will actually be Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, Kemba Walker, and Kyrie Irving. Kemba Walker, I'm so glad he got into the starters for the All-Star game, especially since the All-Star game is in Charlotte. It really fits the narrative a lot better, and he's been the man for Charlotte. There's the entire reason that the Hornets, you give me that team without Kemba Walker, they are a bottom feeder in the Eastern Conference. With Kemba, they're now at the 8th seed in the East. So, do you think there's any snubs? Who do you think are what do you think is great and not great about these picks for starters in the All-Star game?
I actually don't think it's bad. Like you said, you mentioned KD and Jokic. I think for the most part they've got it right. I think there is some, especially with Kevin Durant. When Steph came back, when Steph was gone, Kevin Durant was putting up 40-plus points a night, it seemed like. And there was at least like 30-some points a night he was putting up. But when Steph came back, KD was showing that he's not. We've known he's not the leader of the team, but he showed he wasn't the best player on the team. In my opinion, showed he's not the captain of the team. He's not who the team feeds off of. So I think you can make that argument, but I think for the most part, I think the All-Stars starters are they're pretty good. I think one unpopular opinion I do have is LeBron. He's missed about half the first part of the season. And if I recall, he had the most votes in the Western Conference as well. I think that shows a problem. But other than that, I think they hit the nail on the head.
Well, and he also had like the most votes in general. So I have seen that opinion as well. There's been a lot of people actually that do express that. They say that he shouldn't necessarily be the captain. I could see, and I almost agree to the fact that I think he should be a starter. Absolutely, he should. We see what that Lakers team is without him compared to what they were with him, and we see the effect that he had on and off the court when he was playing. But I can almost see where you would want to say, well, he's been out for a majority of the year. Let's give the captain to somebody else, but let LeBron still start in the All-Star game. Now, when you talk about reserves, some potential reserves, obviously we mentioned Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis is going to be another one, Russell Westbrook will be around, and the Western Conference, Luka Doncic might actually make an All-Star game as well because he's actually been phenomenal as a rookie. And in the Eastern Conference, we'll see Bradley Beal, Ben Simmons, Kyle Lowry, people like that. Dwayne Wade might even get a nod as well. So we'll expect to see those this Thursday, as I mentioned. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about before the Super Bowl, I promise we're getting it to you, is Anthony Davis. Just major shakeup in the NBA yesterday as it was announced that Anthony Davis, the guy who you thought he was going to be a Pelican for life potentially, says he wants a trade, demands a trade, and wants out of New Orleans. Can you name a worse sports week for a city than what New Orleans has been through the past week? Anthony Davis wanting out of the Big Easy. So some popular trade spots that have been announced: Boston, the Lakers, the Raptors. The Knicks have said they're going to offer something, which that could be a ploy to try to get KD in free agency this upcoming summer. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the Pelicans will trade him this season? Do you think they'll wait till the offseason? Or do you think they'll even trade him at all?
I think they will trade him. They'll get 2 years out of him if they don't, obviously, because he's under contract the rest of this year and next year. But I think they will. I think they will trade him. It's better to get something out of him before he walks, and he might hold out next year for a trade. Who knows? Like we don't know what's there. Then his value it'll depreciate. He'll be worth less and less if he does sit out. There's one team that has not shown interest, but I think the time is now for them. And they'd have to mortgage their whole future, but they've done the complete opposite before and tried to sell their players for the future, and it didn't work. I would love to see the Charlotte Hornets do something to make a move, because they say that Drew Holiday wants to possibly go with AD because it's the only reason, 90% of the reason he re-signed with them. I think if you could get him or Kemba to take the shooting guard spot in Charlotte, those three together, Drew, AD, and Kemba, it could be completely insane. And if you want a championship, Michael Jordan's got to, he got to pull the trigger and go after an all-star, because it could be besides Kemba, could be the only all-star they get in the years to come.
I'd love to see it. I would. The problem with that is with the Charlotte Hornets, if you are New Orleans, you're not going to take any deal they put ahead of you unless you include Kemba Walker. Because Kemba is an all-star starter, as we know. He is a clutch player late in games, and he's not that old. He's not, he's a veteran, but he's not like to the point where you're wanting to give him veterans minimum. He still has years in this league. So if you're New Orleans, in my opinion, the teams that they're going to go after, they may even try to initiate contact with some teams that don't really want to trade for Anthony Davis, because I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's take a look at the Denver Nuggets, for example. Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, all the young talent. They have Michael Porter Jr., who could be a potential good player. There's so much young talent, and they're just stockpiling it right now. New Orleans could initiate a trade rumor with them or another team similar to that, maybe like the Boston Celtics again, with their overflowing of youth. You see that, and they may try to reach out, and the team may not be interested. Now, as I said, this could be something. I think that the New Orleans Pelicans will either wait until the trade deadline, right at the trade deadline, or they'll do it in the offseason. They're not going to do it before that. They want to get teams as desperate as possible to throw the entire house at them for Anthony Davis. So could that be the Los Angeles Lakers with giving up maybe a Lonzo Ball, a Brandon Ingram, a Kyle Kuzma, and a first-round pick? Could that be? Possibly. And New Orleans would actually entertain that idea, because New Orleans wants to be able to build for the future. They're not going to contend in the Western Conference right now, but if you get Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and Kuzma, you might be able to at least compete and get the 10th spot in the Western Conference, or even sneak in at the 8th spot. Everything's possible at this point. So the Lakers, they may throw the house at him. My other theory I have is that the Pelicans do not want to help the Lakers this year, because they want to be able to have as much leverage as possible when it comes down to later on in the league. And you don't want to give the Lakers another all-star, because guess how that's going to do? Attract more all-stars. So you don't want to help the Lakers at that point, but if they give you their entire future, you almost have to consider it and say, absolutely. We'll have to see what happens in the upcoming weeks, though. As promised, it's it for other sports. We're here to the NFL, and if you are a fan of the two teams, it's your favorite time of year. If you're not, then you're kind of just waiting for it to be over. The Super Bowl week, we want to talk about the Pro Bowl real quick. Very boring, not much to talk about. Just give some brief stats from it, if you want to call it that. A very rainy day in Orlando. Not much tackling going on, because they don't want to have concussions and other injuries that will affect anything in the Pro Bowl. Patrick Mahomes leads passing 7-14 for 156 yards and a touchdown with no picks. This is a game we saw an interception by Mike Evans and a touchdown catch by Jalen Ramsey. So this just shows what type of game that we had here. Once again, Jalen Ramsey, 1 catch for 6 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster actually leaving the game with knee tendonitis. He is all right, though. He tweeted that he was perfectly fine. James Conner with 3 receptions for 34 yards, but the leading receiver of the game was Keenan Allen with 4 receptions for 95 yards total. No receiver broke 100 yards in this game. Isaiah, it's so hard to hype up the Pro Bowl. What were your thoughts on the weekend?
I think I saw a comment on Instagram that pretty much summed it up. It was so boring that they need to get players that are projected to go undrafted and make them fight it out. And it would be entertaining, and it'd actually be hard. They wouldn't be. It was literally Mike Evans' interception. They started ladderling around like they were playing rugby. The tackle, he just gave him a hug, and Evans walked off. That's literally how it ended. So it was pathetic.
And if you are not a fan of the Rams or Patriots, you're looking forward to the Alliance of American Football that will be going place the week after the Super Bowl. We may cover that a little bit this year. Who knows? The New England Patriots and the Rams will go again. We'll move away from the Pro Bowl and we'll go talk about officially get into our Super Bowl preview. So again, for the second time in Super Bowl history, we have the New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams. This has been since 2002 in the making. I saw a post earlier. Whenever they met in the Super Bowl and Tom Brady defeated the Rams, Rob Gronkowski was 12 years old, Sony Michel was 6 years old, and Julian Edelman, I believe, was 14 years old. So this is a ridiculous thing to look at because I know Tom Brady was young. It was his 3rd year in the league. But you have a perennial all-star in Rob Gronkowski, and he was 12 the last time you met in the Super Bowl, and that was I believe that was his 2nd Super Bowl win. So, once again, this has just been a lot of time in the making. But Los Angeles, no pushover. This is probably, you can almost say it matches up with the greatest show on turf that the Patriots did face. And this is probably not as good of a Patriots team as we saw back then because their defense is just not as dominant as it was. But still, looking forward to a pretty exciting shootout of a game between Jared Goff, the young gun, and the weapons that LA has, and the experience of the GOAT, Tom Brady. What are your initial thoughts on the game? What do you think are your key matchups? And do you think that there's going to be a specific player to keep an eye on for either side?
And first of all, my biggest key matchup is the Patriots' interior line versus Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald. If they're going to win, if the Rams are going to win, that's going to be the most vital part of the whole team. My secondary matchup would probably be, it'll most likely be Aqib Talib and matching up on Julian Edelman. I'm not as worried about Gronk. I'm not entirely sure why I'm not as worried about Gronk in this game. It might be because the Rams are, they hit, and that's Gronk's only weakness. He hits back, obviously, but you can't just try to wrap up and fall to the ground. You have to hit if you're going to tackle him. So I don't think he'll be as big of a threat, especially after the catch. But Julian Edelman, who has this postseason been, he's shown that he should be have the title, or at least be in the conversation as one of the best postseason receivers of all time. Some people saying it should be worthy of the Hall of Fame if he retired today. I wouldn't go that far, but the matchup with him and Aqib Talib and or Marcus Peters will be the one to watch as well. The number 2 matchup of the game. Aside from that, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
I do want to talk about how each team got here. So we did this last year, just a brief overview of their seasons in general. We'll start off with the AFC and New England Patriots. Started the regular season, they defeated the Houston Texans. You remember Houston actually started off, I believe it was 0-4 on the season and went on a red hot tear. Number 2, in week 2, they were beaten by the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is back when we thought Jacksonville could actually do something. Blake Bortles threw for 376 yards on the Patriots defense. He's probably without a job this upcoming summer. Week 3 was another loss actually. Detroit dismantling the Patriots. This was, we were talking about on the show. We were starting to think, is this the beginning of the end for the New England Patriots? And of course, we were completely wrong, like we always are when it comes to the New England Patriots. Week 4, they dismantled the Miami Dolphins, 38-7 at home. Week 5, they beat the Indianapolis Colts, 38-24. Again, Colts, similar story to the Houston Texans. Started off slow, but got hot in the middle of the season. Week 6, in the thrilling Monday night game, a shootout in Foxborough, they edged out the Kansas City Chiefs 43-40. Patrick Mahomes 352 yards in that game was not enough as the Patriots defense held on towards the end of the game. In week 7, they beat the Chicago Bears. Once again, a tough matchup there. The Bears, we all know the type of defense they had this year, and they look to continue to have going into next year. Week 8 is Buffalo. That wasn't a contest, 25-6, New England. Week 9 was Green Bay. This is the point where we're talking about Aaron Rodgers versus Brady, and Brady turned that into a laugher as they went 31-17 in Foxborough. Week 10 was New England and Tennessee was the most inconsistent team ever this year because they destroyed the Patriots 34-10 at home, and then they continued to be not good for the rest of the season. Aside from Derrick Henry running 99 yards in a Monday Night Football game. They had a bye week 11, week 12. They defeated the New York Jets 27-13 in East Rutherford. But once again, that's going to be another story that we really haven't seen what the Jets could be compared to what they might be this year. They just signed Adam Gase. They just signed Adam Gase. They just signed Greg Williams. This could be an interesting team coming up. Week 13, they played Minnesota. It was a laugher, 24-10, Patriots. Week 14 was the Miracle in Miami. Miami winning 34-33 on a Stanford, the band is on the field type play, and looked like they were going to try to take the AFC East from them. That doesn't happen in the NFL. It didn't happen this year. Week 15, they lost again to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Once again, the Steelers looking like that win was going to potentially get them in a spot to win the AFC North. They didn't. Baltimore would end up rallying and winning the AFC North. Week 16 was New England and Buffalo. Once again, do I need to say it? New England wins 24-12. And then week 17, New England actually playing their starters against the Jets, win 38-3 as they clinch a number 2 spot in the AFC. In the postseason, in the divisional round, they beat the Los Angeles Chargers 41-28, and then in the conference championship, in the exciting overtime finish. I say exciting very loosely because the overtime was all but exciting as they win 37-31 as they've done time and time again. So what are your thoughts on the season? What do you think that says about the Patriots, and do you think that this has been the similar season that we're used to seeing from the New England Patriots?
Dude, I don't know. Honestly, every year it seems like they win the first game, and then they lose, or at least it's close in the next 5 or 6. And then when the season ends, they either go undefeated the last 8-9 games, or they win 5 straight, then lose 2 straight, so you're okay, they're done again. And then they win the rest and finish the year as the number 1 seed somehow. And every year, it just so happens, when they're not in position for the 1 or 2 seed, the teams that are fall off even worse than the Patriots do, and the Patriots still end up with the 1 or 2 seed. It's crazy. I'm not going to predict of a New England fall because every time I do, it lasts another year or 2. So I'm just going to pray that they lose the game and pray that it ends soon for all of our sakes.
Yeah, it's how I feel. I tweeted it out here recently. If you don't follow me on Twitter, do that. My Twitter handle, @NuggetsNation21. Again, I am a Denver Nuggets fan. Don't. You can't give me flack for it this year because they're actually good. But, NuggetsNation21 on Twitter, I actually tweeted it whenever they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I said, and America loses once again. Because when New England wins, America loses. And when they lose, America wins. There's a number of teams that are like that. Alabama, another example. Not many people actually like the New England Patriots these days. That's just how it is. But you can't deny they have been the ideal picture of an NFL franchise. You can't build a team better than what the New England Patriots have done throughout their entire generational talent. So, moving on to the NFC side, the young upstart team trying to replicate that is the Los Angeles Rams. They started off their season with a win against the Oakland Raiders, 33-13, but who didn't beat the Raiders? That's right, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 2 was the Arizona Cardinals. They went 34-0 in LA. Number 3 was the Los Angeles Chargers. The Rams win 35-23. They went on a tear to start off the season. So you're going to hear that a lot. Week 4 against the Minnesota Vikings, they win 38-31. Week 5 is the Seattle Seahawks. They win 33-31. That was a very exciting game in Seattle. Week 6 was the Denver Broncos. The Rams escaped with a 23-20 win, actually winning in Mile High. Week 7 was the 49ers. They win 39-10. Week 8 was the Green Bay Packers. They finally returned home, and if it weren't for a fumbled kickoff by Ty Montgomery, yes, the Ty Montgomery that plays for Baltimore now, the Rams wouldn't have won. 29-27 was the final score of that game. Week 9, they suffered their first loss of the season to the New Orleans Saints, 45-35 in the Superdome. Week 10 was the Seattle Seahawks once again. They get another win, 36-31 on their home field. Week 11 was the Kansas City Chiefs. This was the game that was supposed to be in Mexico City, but it was actually moved to LA because of poor field conditions in Mexico City. And with that, it was a shootout, 54-51, a win for the Los Angeles Rams. Week 12 was their bye week. Week 13 was a win against the Detroit Lions, 30-16. Week 14, however, was a loss to the Chicago Bears, who really held them to only 6 points and dominated the game. They get a win in Soldier Field. And then week 15, Philadelphia comes all the way across the country to LA and wins 30-23 against the Rams. This is the point where you're thinking the Rams may not get a top 2 seed in the NFC, but they won the last 2 games. Week 16, they beat the Arizona Cardinals 31-9, and Week 17 was the San Francisco 49ers, where they won 48-32. So we go to the postseason, and they started off with a pretty big win. Obviously, the biggest win of the postseason was the New Orleans Saints in the NFC Championship, but they actually started that off with a divisional win over the Dallas Cowboys. So how does that stack up with New England? Do you think that they are a little bit more resilient, or how do you think that this compares to the journey that New England is taking to get here?
So you started off and it was about like New England winning the first game, losing a couple, then win a few and lose one, win a bunch, lose one. And then the Rams. My biggest concern with the Rams when the year started was they were winning about so much, I didn't know how they were going to perform in close games. And that's what my biggest concern was, because when you get to playoffs, it's going to be close eventually. I don't think we've ever seen someone cruise all the way through playoffs to the Super Bowl. I don't think it's ever happened. Too much talent for that. But they did show one with the stretch in Green Bay and Seattle, and there was another one in Kansas City, yes, with that stretch, and that was that plus the loss against the Saints. That was like 4 games in like 6 weeks. It was a hard stretch for LA. I think that showed their resiliency. I think when it comes to that, the way they stack up against New England, I think New England has more experience. I would say New England's more resilient. But my question is, when it comes to coming back late in games, you have to have energy for that. The Rams are young. The Patriots, for the most part, some of their key players are older and injury prone. Like Gronk's not old, but he gets hurt every year. Maybe sometimes twice a year. So I think when it comes to resiliency, when it comes to the mindset, New England has the upper hand. But when it comes to physique and physical capabilities to come back and fight to the very, very end of the game, I think physically, the Rams have the upper hand.
Now, this has to be asked before we continue to preview these teams. The question is just simple. Did the officials help both these teams get into the Super Bowl? Because we all know the pass interference call that wasn't a pass interference against that, or a pass interference that should have been pass interference that wasn't called against the Saints for the Rams in the NFC Championship game. The corner, was it? I cannot recall who exactly it was.
It was Nickel Roby Coleman.
Yes, Nickel Roby Coleman. Just levels. There was no reason for it. There's no judgment that I could think that you could honestly make. You want to say it's an uncatchable ball? It was going to be right in his breadbasket. And the only reason you could say that it wasn't is because Coleman got there so quickly. Because he hit him so early that it was a travesty. And then on the other side, for the New England Patriots, D. Ford placing his hand on Tom Brady's shoulder pad, not even knocking him to the ground, just placing it on the shoulder pad, results in a 15-yard penalty and roughing the passer. So for both of these teams, I don't like to say that an official got a team a win. I don't like to say that because when you take a look at other opportunities, you could always make the case of, well, if Drew Brees doesn't throw the interception in overtime. You could also say, well, if they didn't give up a 14-0 lead and things like that. If you don't blow a 14-0 lead, you don't throw that pick in overtime, you score on other opportunities, you still win. Is it worth saying in this scenario for both sides that the officials gave the win to the Patriots and the Rams?
For one, they need to make calls, especially crucial calls like that are determining someone's whole season. They need to make them reviewable, first of all, to solve that. And second, I think it's definitely safe to say that the officials cost them the game. And yes, they could have executed better in different plays. But, I mean, it was Nick Roby calling 2 blown calls in one play. It wasn't just pass interference. It was helmet-to-helmet contact.
Actually got fined for it in the following week.
He got fined pretty I think it was like $25K for a helmet-to-helmet hit when the penalty wasn't called. 2 blown calls in one play. If he reacted in a different manner, he might have even been able to tip it. But instead, he just lowers his helmet and hits him, and it's 2 blown calls in the play. The D Ford one, it's insane. It's completely insane, just the favoritism that teams get. Part of me wants to blame the refs. Part of me wants to blame Drake. But part of me also just wants to blame Roger Goodell because by the rule book, he had potential. Like, he has a rule in the rule book. Michael Thomas tweeted it out, receiver for the New Orleans Saints. He could have made both of them could have made both teams, given them rematches against the Rams and Patriots. Would it happen? The rule book says that the ruling on the field has to be grossly unfair, and they said the reason they wouldn't go through is probably because the case can't be made. But I think it's costing 2 teams Super Bowl appearances. I think it's kind of grossly unfair. I would have rather watched rematches instead of the Pro Bowl. But yeah, you got to make them reviewable if that's not going to happen.
And it's also the same thing I've always said. I even said it on the show not long ago during the podcast style stuff that I was doing. But the NFL, their overtime rules are so stupid, are so annoying because what makes college overtime great? You think about all the classic games in the college football world. A lot of them go to overtime, and a lot of them are because of the fantastic system. How many memorable games for the NFL do you remember because they went to overtime? Do you think of the Tim Tebow playoff game? But really, that's about it. You don't think about any overtime like thriller games because they don't last that long. And it's ridiculous the fact that you have professional athletes and they get to win a game basically based off of a coin toss. I know your idea is, well, they can drive down the field and if they score a touchdown, it's easier said than done. But still, when Tom Brady wins a coin toss for the overtime and gets the ball in the AFC Championship game, you know he's going to drive down the field and score. Why wouldn't you help affect ratings? Patrick Mahomes just put together a great drive to take it to overtime. Why not give him another chance to go down, tie the game? I don't even care if you make it sudden death after that. It's just not fair. My system, I saw this online, a YouTuber named KTO posted it. A fix that he came up with that I'm a huge fan of is either you have it set at the 15-yard line with you have it first and goal at the 15, no field goals. So that means touchdowns, 2-point conversions. You play no field goals that way. There's shorter distances, not much playing left to do. Or you just start them at the 40. I am a big supporter of that. It's very ridiculous that a team can win based off of their coin toss, and that's why I was not a fan of how that game ended against the Kansas City Chiefs, and also an abhorrent roughing the passer call and abhorrent non-call going for a pass interference. The official should have been ashamed for both of them.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the overtime rules are they're just messed up. In short, I think personally. I like that you pointed out that people are like, oh, it's not that easy to go down the field and score. Well, look at the 4 teams we had playing. Both games went to overtime. In the NFC, you have Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all-time leading passer in yards, with Michael Thomas, one of the best receivers in the NFL, Ted Ginn, one of the fastest receivers in the NFL, and probably the best running back combination, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, in the NFL. Okay, you have that on one side. The other side, you have young Jared Goff, who was in the MVP conversation this year for a time. Todd Gurley, the best running back in the league. C.J. Anderson, best goal line back in playoffs, at least. And Brandon Cooks, our receiver, a guy that has been phenomenal because he's the whole package. He's just not big. Then on the other side, you have Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. Rob Gronkowski, arguably greatest receiver of all or tight end of all time. Julian Edelman, a playoff magician. And Sonny Michel, one of the top rookie running backs. And the other side there, you have Patrick Mahomes, Second player ever for 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards in a season. How hard is it to drive down the field in overtime, one possession, score a touchdown in a league that's offensive driven? You're seeing games weekly go 30, 40 points when the defense can only play so much defense because of the rules. It's not that hard when you have that much talent, which every team did. So I agree. Like, yeah, I like the 15-yard line, no field goals rule. That's my favorite.
And once again, you're talking about, highlight the AFC specifically, because the NFC, it at this point helps the NFC, but it's not necessarily as apparent in the NFC. These two teams in the AFC, at times, their defense was horrendous in the season. Now, they picked it up. The Chiefs in particular with Justin Houston, D Ford. D Ford was a Pro Bowler. There were a lot of good players, and they had good performances. But there were other times that those defenses got exposed. Same thing can be said for when the New England Patriots let the Tennessee Titans drop 35 on them. So the idea is, this is not a team that is, and you, again, same fan that supports the system now can say, well, the defense needs to put up or shut up. And I agree. That is the case. In this system, they do. But they shouldn't be told, yeah, guys, by the way, if they get into the end zone, your season's done. Sorry. Like, you shouldn't be able to just say that because they won a coin flip. Once again, I'm not a fan of, oh, I called heads, I got it, I'm Tom Brady, therefore I'm going to win the AFC Championship. Change the system, make it more like college football, and I'll be more interested. So, getting away from the official talk and the championship week talk about the actual Super Bowl we have at hand. Again, like it or not, it will be the New England Patriots and the Los Angeles Rams. So, talk about how they're stacking up. On the defensive end, it's the Rams. The Rams are a better defense than the New England Patriots. The Patriots have some good players. Dante Hightower is a perennial guy that you always talk about. Patrick Chung. But for the Rams, Aaron Donald, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters in the secondary, it's great. It's a fantastic defense. The Rams, top 5 defense probably in the NFL. New England, not. Advantage for the defense, Rams.
Yeah, defensively in every facet. You can maybe make a case that defensive end, the Patriots are a little better, but then again, you have Aaron Donald who can play defensive end. You can make the case that middle linebacker, they're a little better. Well, who cares when you have Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh? Who needs a great middle linebacker with good coverage skills, which is what you'll need against them, with good coverage skills, when you have Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh who can jump up and swat it, probably has the same radius relatively that a middle linebacker has playing that close to the line. So in every facet, maybe the secondary you have the McCourty twins in New England. So when it comes to safeties, they might have an advantage, but every other position group I would give to LA.
See, in defense, that's why I was stacking it all together, because I do believe that LA has the advantage in every single facet. Now you're talking about offense. I'm going to split it up. Offensive line. My pick goes to the New England Patriots, because Tom Brady, they've done a fantastic job all season long, making sure Tom Brady doesn't get hit. Of course, it seems like if he gets hit, there's going to be a flag that comes out, because majority of the time, the only way you get to Tom Brady is you have to commit some sort of infraction to doing it. And that's part of the efforts of the offensive line. They do such a great job protecting their guy. And so, in my mind, offensive line, the edge goes to New England.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I do think when it comes, well, honestly, I was going to say when it comes to the run game, I'd give the offensive line edge to the Rams. But then again, Todd Gurley is, I would say, one of the most talented backs in the NFL. We don't know really how talented Sony Michel is, because he's running behind a great offensive line. I mean, it may be more Michel when it comes to the run game, maybe not. And you can look at Tom Brady, the same thing. He's got a great pocket presence. But we also know that if he gets hit, he gets rattled. And he hasn't really been rattled this year. And pocket presence only gets you so far. So I have to agree with you with that.
Talk about wide receivers. And I'm going to group the tight end with this as well, although that might end up swinging it a little bit unfair. The Rams have a fantastic receiving core. It is a little bit depleted, though. The New England Patriots receiving core is not. Julian Edelman coming in, Chris Hogan, another one that people seem to forget about, Rob Gronkowski. Just straight up, I like the Patriots receiving core a little bit better in this game compared to what the Rams are doing. Even though the Rams are a talented team, They do miss Cooper Kupp, so I like the New England Patriots receiving core in this game better than the Rams.
Yeah, I would say I'm glad you mentioned Cooper Kupp as well, because I was going to say, if I would probably give the Rams the edge if they had Kupp. But then again, you can make the case, well, if the Patriots had Flash Gordon, it could be going both ways, especially considering Dion Lewis is pretty much a slot receiver. Grouping tight ends with them, it's hands down. I've got to say at that point, like I would take Cooks over probably Edelman and the other receivers, but that's still maybe Edelman. I've got to give it to New England, no doubt.
At running back, it's the Rams. Rams, Todd Gurley, best running back in the NFL, even though he was only held to 10 rushing yards last game by the New Orleans Saints. C.J. Anderson has been a fantastic pickup for them towards the end of the season. John Kelly, another one back there if need be. So the Rams, I give the edge in the running game because the Patriots, they're only running right now. The only running backs they've got right now are Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead. Pretty decent tandem, but I like the Rams' talent at the running back position a little bit more.
I've got to agree with that as well. It's not every year that you have an MVP candidate at running back, unless his name's Todd Gurley, apparently. 20 touchdowns this year. 20 touchdowns. And he can do some stuff as a receiver as well. And I like when he gets tired. If he pulls off an 80-yard run, gets tackled on the 5, then you have 4 chances for C.J. Anderson, who's a bowling ball, to get 5 yards. Like, honestly, they don't need an upper hand in the passing game because their running game is so dynamic and just two different styles when Gurley can play both styles. So I like the Rams running game a whole lot better.
Going quickly to special teams. This is a tougher pick because you talk about on the Rams side, I cannot quite recall the name of the return man, was a Pro Bowler this year. But on the other side, you have Cordero Patterson in the return game for the Patriots. I'm going to very, 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 as much as I'd like to go either way, I think I could go either way, I'm going to give it to the New England Patriots because I like that Patterson. I like the efforts he has in the return game, both in the punting and kicking game. And Gostkowski, as a kicker, he's done this before. He's been to plenty of Super Bowls, been to as many in the Patriots uniform seems like as Vinatieri did. So Gostkowski, the kicker, and Patterson, the return game, I like New England's special teams. Plus, they always are creative on special teams. You always got to look out for maybe a fake punt or maybe a questionable, a weird decision coming out from Bill Belichick that ends up being genius.
The kick returner, I was drawing blanks as well. His name's JoJo Natson, because they're all pro from last year. Got hurt, so they cut him. And JoJo Natson became a Pro Bowler and all pro. I think he's all pro. That's hard for me because I would take Cordero over him just because of experience, and he's been in not huge games but bigger games than Natson overall, I'd say. But when it comes to kicking, Gostkowski is more consistent, but Greg Zuerlein has leg. He's attempted, I think, I watched him attempt a 73-yarder when Jeff Fisher coached the Rams, and it wasn't short. He was just a little wide left. The line of scrimmage was at the 50. So that just explains how crazy his leg is, why they called him Crazy Legs for a while. But I would still, consistently, I'd give it to Gostkowski as well. But the punting game, Johnny Hecker's the best punter in the NFL. In my opinion, like it's not much of an argument with Marquette King hurt and had been all year, not even playing that well when he did get to play. So it's kind of split. But and especially with punt returning, you have Cordero and Julian Edelman that can punt return, and Dion Lewis that can punt return for New England. So I'd give it to them by a hair, mainly because of Gostkowski's consistency and their consistency overall. But I'd say it's a little closer.
Yeah, the only punter in the game I think that could stack up with him is maybe Michael Pilardi or Matt Darr. But yeah, definitely Johnny Hecker, at least. In my opinion, still, I agree with you, the top punter in the NFL, but he's definitely in a league of his own when it comes to the punting game. And here comes, to me, the easiest pick I've done yet, the quarterback matchup. I don't care who you say is on the other side. Tom Brady wins the quarterback matchup. He's been in the Super Bowl countless number of times. He's going for literally more Super Bowls than any franchise other than one has won in their existence. He's trying to get six rings himself, not as a franchise, himself. Insanity. Quarterback matchup. I don't need to talk anymore. Tom Brady.
I'm just gonna quote Todd Gurley when Jared Goff against it wasn't the Saints, or it might have been against the Saints. He tucked and ran for 6 yards, got the first down. They asked Todd Gurley about it after the game. He said, "I didn't think Jared was gonna win it for us." I know he meant on the ground, but it was just kind of ironic that Jared Goff is good, but it was just blatant, kind of where his mindset was going, even though it was in a different context. And like greatest of all time versus a guy that's going to be an MVP candidate, I think, in a few years, a serious one. But I got to go with Brady. I mean, this is his 9th Super Bowl. He has more experience in Super Bowls, just experience, even counting losses, than most teams do in history.
So, official prediction time. I'm going to ask you, who do you think wins Super Bowl? Who is your Super Bowl MVP? And we see the dark horse players that come out and make a big impact every single year. Who is your dark horse player to come out and lead their team surprisingly or make a big impact play to win a Super Bowl?
Wow. My MVP, I'm picking the Rams, okay? I've always picked against New England, and I'm split right now in my all-time picks against them and for them. I'm picking Aaron Donald as MVP. First time in a long time it's been a defensive lineman, first defensive player since Von Miller. Von Miller was not too long ago. Defensive tackle / end, more tackle. I think because he'll get in Brady's face and disrupt the passing game a little bit, maybe make Tom Brady a little scared on the inside. Dark horse player, I want to say Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff will. I think Todd Gurley may be stopped a little bit in the run game. I think it might come down to Goff to put some points up. Neither him or Hogan, the receiver that you mentioned earlier from New England.
There's not a person in the country that wants New England to lose more than me. There isn't. I hate the New England Patriots. They have embarrassed my team for years and years and years on end. But I've also learned if I had to, I don't usually like to make picks like this, but if I was told, here's 10 grand, make a bet, it's going on the New England Patriots. Because the experience of Tom Brady, I know they got beat by Philadelphia last year. Almost that makes me want to pick them even more, though. They're coming back to the Super Bowl with a vengeance. Tom Brady's saying, hey, you remember what happened last year? Let's not do that again. And so, Super Bowl MVP, do I even need to say it? It's going to be Tom Brady if the Patriots win it all once again for the 6th time. But the dark horse player to me is going to be not Sonny Michel, but Rex Burkhead. If you get down low to the goal line, who are they handing it off to? Burkhead. Burkhead's going to be the big guy going through, breaking out, hitting, outside pitches, run up the middle, halfback blast up the middle. He might end up with 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game, and that's because they get it down to the 2-yard line. Hey, Rex, run it in for us. Patriots win. Tom Brady MVP. Rex Burkhead, dark horse player. Or on the other side, I would say Dante Hightower as well on the defensive end, trying just to neutralize and keep the defense calm under pressure. So our last thing I want to do, as we do every single week, the hot take, your official hot take of the week. So once again, maybe an unpopular opinion, and this could be about anything. I'm probably going to point towards the Super Bowl, obviously where it's our Super Bowl preview. So once again, just your hot take of the week. What is it?
Oh shoot, that's a tough one. I would say, I don't know. I know it's not likely, especially since every team's filled their coaching position. But if the Patriots lose this year in the Super Bowl, I think that Josh McDaniels may be a little open to taking a head coaching opportunity next year, depending on whether they go back or not. If they go back to the Super Bowl and win, he might be a little more inclined to stay. But if they lose again this year, I think there might be reports saying Josh McDaniels is ready to part way with the Patriots, especially if a coaching job for some reason opens up again.
My official hot take for the week. Excuse me once again. As much as some friends that we have may not agree with this, the best team in the NFL is not playing in the Super Bowl right now. And it's the New Orleans Saints. Because you take a look at their offense right now. Drew Brees, as you said, you went through it all earlier. Drew Brees, Mike Thomas, Ted Ginn, the running back tandem, their offensive line, the defense with Marshawn Lattimore. You talk about Marcus Williams, even though he kind of lived up after his mistake in the Minneapolis Miracle last year, putting in another pretty good season. And they played so well. My hot take for the week is that I'd even go out on a limb and say the two best teams, in my opinion, aren't playing in the Super Bowl, because I think that the Chiefs and the Saints were the better matchup. I think that this was two great teams, two young teams that, other than the quarterback position for the Saints, that could have given each other a run for their money. Instead, we got the Rams and the Patriots. So that's my hot take for the week, but I'll have to live with it, as once again the Super Bowl Sunday night. Rams, Patriots, tune in for the second time in Super Bowl history. Will Tom Brady get his 6th ring and continue to chase great and continue to carve himself as the greatest quarterback of all time? Or will Jared Goff shock the world like Nick Foles did a year ago? Well, that is going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes here from Radio Free Radford. If you like what you heard, then be sure to like our Facebook page, where we'll update all that goes on here on Hot Takes with Holmes. We're also on YouTube, where all of our broadcasts are uploaded to. Find us at Hot Takes with Holmes on both of the sites. Again, Facebook and YouTube are both Hot Takes with Holmes. Once again, this is the last semester. We'll be going live every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Tune in, please. Be sure to tune in as much as you can, because this is the last run, and we're excited to take you with us. So, for my co-host Isaiah Addair, I'm Blake Holmes, and we'll see you next week here on Radio Free Radford.